Oh, there we go. Hi. It's so funny, technology, guys. That's all I can say. Let's see if I have. Perfect. Okay, so I am going to talk about tonight, I'm going to talk about the odd connection that I found between Brian Laundrie and Amber Heard. Now, I want to make sure that you guys can see or hear me. So if you can, would you make a comment? I just don't see anything. Oh, shoot. Am I going to have to do this? Oh, there we go. Hi, Melanie. Thanks for posting. I just didn't know if anybody was on because sometimes with the technology. All right, Brent, good to see you. Say hi. Joseph, how you doing? Hey, good to see you. I feel like old home week, you guys. Hi, Tina. Anybody new? Anybody new? Ricky, Ricky boy, I just wanted to say I got your message about your mom, and I'm just really, I commented on it, and I just want you to know I'm sending lots of light to you. It's a very hard time, and I just want to acknowledge that because that was a lot of times, you guys, people make comments on, after the video. And it's after we do this, and it's a lot easier for me to see them when they're on like if they're on the feed. I might miss you is what I'm trying to say. That's all. I knew I could do it in English. Woohoo! English, first language. Yay. So we are going to talk about that odd connection I found. And we are going to talk about, I think Brian Laundrie and Amber Heard are two very distinctly, obviously different people, but also people who are fueled by jealousy. And I'm really vibing on that hugely. And I want to talk about what happens when an abuser gets pushed into a corner, right? Because they double down. They don't just go, you're right. They double down. And so we're going to look at that a little bit, talk about that. So I just want to say to everybody tonight that I will try to pay attention as well to chat. For those of you watching after, I want to let you know that I love when a live is interactive. So that's how I roll. That's how I kind of play the game a little bit. I know that's for some people, they're like, oh, we're so busy paying attention to chat. Well, you know what? That's why I'm doing some videos where I'm just uploading them as well so that you can get a little of each. And if you haven't been to one of the live before, come. And also, I want to make sure you know that when I'm trying to think, I know what I wanted to say. Anybody new? Do we have any new people jumping on? Just want to, before I get really started on my thoughts, I want to just, okay. Hi, Karen. Anybody new? Just kind of go, oh, Leslie, welcome. And oh my gosh, Facine, you're all the way from Japan. Hello. Woohoo. Let's see. Yep, mini donkeys, you got alive. Okay, great. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe if you like this video. I'm going to be launching a lot of things coming up that'll just be to subscribers, so definitely jump on. And let's see. Oh, Mini Donkeys just said, my sister has the same personality disorder as Amber. I'm totally fascinated watching this case unfold. The stories I could tell you. Well, the stories we're watching, right? Exactly. Texas Lassie, woohoo, is in the house. Good to see you, girl. All right. So just so you guys know, I'm familiar with some of the people on here. Some of you are newer. So I just want you all to know that I'm very excited to see some of the folks from before. Lori, hello, Lori Staggs. Good to see you. And let me see. All right. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Oh, Scott, what's going on? I love saying hi to people. So just so you know, I'll probably post when I post this video, hey, I start talking about stuff about at this time. So that way people don't have to listen to the 5 minutes of me saying, hi, everybody. So just as a reminder, I'm going to try to tell you a little bit about my thoughts about Brian Laundrie and about the Amber Heard personalities, and how I think that we are seeing a huge outing of that type of personality. And I think it's the idea that we really are not tolerating this kind of behavior anymore. And I think one of the things that I really believe is that we're going to see in the end of this trial. I got to be honest, and I'm talking about Amber Heard now. I don't really care. I that's not a nice way to say it, but I don't really think it matters whether Johnny Depp wins or not, because he's already won. And what he's won for all of us is the new face of what victims and what abusers look like. And I think that's a really important point to make, because even in the testimony, when we saw the what do you call it, the woman who never met Depp was talking about him as the abuser. That was crazy. She was Amber's therapist, so to speak. And the thing that was fascinating is watching her really, I want to say, stereotype that how men are abusers, and men and men and men. And all we heard is from her, excuse the expression, all we heard was about the horrible abuse that Amber Heard suffered, and or women suffer. See, that was the very subliminal thing that I think she did that was very, and most of us noticed it, right? I mean, you guys noticed it, I know that. But I think one of the things that I noticed is that there was this idea that he was the abuser. And I'm going to talk about the Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie relationship in a moment. But I think if we look and we take Amber Heard and we look at her as, this woman is doubling down. She's got nowhere to go. I'm not going to pull any punches on this. You guys know that. I mean, we're looking at her and she is backed into a corner. What would you do? I want you to just think about this for a minute. This is kind of how I intuitively kind of feel into things. I go, okay, think for a minute. Think. Sorry, I'm going to yawn. You know, I'm always yawning when I'm reading and stuff. But what would you do if you had been Amber Heard? Now, I know you wouldn't have been, but I want you to imagine that for a minute, all of this has happened. And now you're in a position where you're obviously a liar. I can't imagine what's going on in her head. I mean, thinking honestly, I get a headache because I would be freaking out. And I think most normal people, most of us would be like, oh no. And I think that she's pushed into a corner. And somebody said to me, do you think she'll harm Johnny? And I'm like, no, she's already done her stuff. Like I think that we're going to see Amber Heard really disgraced. And I don't think she's going to turn out well, is what I'm trying to say. But I want you to hold that image of Amber Heard being in a corner, right? She's in a corner. And I'm going to jump over to Brian Laundrie because I kind of want to show you what I saw, and then we can kind of go back and forth with it. When I was thinking about Brian Laundrie, I was thinking about people who feel cornered. People who feel like, I need this. I need that. And I think there's this idea of needing an external validation. You know, I need you to like me. I need you to do X so I'm okay. And a lot of times when I'm teaching or I'm working on a new book, it's kind of like I'm thinking, you know, how much of the time do we spend taking someone else's pulse to see if we're okay? And when I looked at, and I'm going to just for a moment go to Brian, there was always something wrong with him. Even in the paintings he did, in the sketches he did, he was really into this nerdy, gory kind of weirdo stuff, right? I mean, I'm sorry to say weirdo because like he is a weirdo, but well, he was. I don't think necessarily that people who are like that are weirdos, but there's an energy that's complete around him. And even as I watched, if you watch some of that stuff, even when he was talking to the cops and he's kind of like, yeah, and I don't have a phone. And meanwhile, he had a phone. So there was some weird stuff. Like he was just lying And we watched him lie, and he was kind of laughing and smiling a little through it. Now, the difference between him and Amber Heard, obviously, is that Amber thinks she's an actress. So she's mugging for the camera, so to speak. And he once he realized, and this is where things started to get very interesting, and I'm going to talk about the Moab, Utah, when he was pulled over, right? He and Gabby, and they were pulled over. And I'm talking about this for a reason. I will talk about, the reason I'm mentioning this is because somebody's actually doing a story on Gabby's life. So I wanted to talk about this for a minute. One of the things that I think is most vital here, because the parents of Gabby, obviously people want to remember her in a good light. And yet I feel sometimes if we just run to a spiritual solution, they're in a better place. We're missing the energy of how we can help each other. And I think that's so important. And I'll look at the chat in a minute. One of the things that is coming forward to me, and I think becomes very important in this conversation, is that Brian had already killed himself, right? We know that he killed himself when he took the Mustang out there, right? He was in that swamp, and it wasn't until the swamp pulled back that he was found. I don't understand this, and this is just me. If I had a son that I knew was in trouble, I don't know that I would let him just drive off to the swamp, especially taking a gun. So for me, I'm not blaming the parents. I'm just saying there's something not right there's bats in the belfry, as my mother used to say. There's something going on up there, right? Just want to say thank you. Oh, mini donkeys, thank you so much. Bipolar disorder. Okay, I don't know a lot about that. All right, I can research it, but I can also recommend some good channels that talk specifically about that, the bipolar. I can only talk about it energetically, but I will try to get to that. So thank you for asking that question, mini donkeys. I keep saying monkeys. Okay. Sonia just said, and I think this is very helpful, the victim also lives the lie by denying what's happening or believing it will get better. Yes, and there is a healing that each of them need to do, all right? So I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But let's get to, we know that Brian shot himself and he was found at the bottom of the swamp. Now, we also know, and this to me is kind of like, he was cornered. He knew that once he ran away from that scene, his life was over. And what's interesting, and let's back up for a minute and just imagine energetically, and I'm not trying to bring out any spirits or anything like that, but just energetically, if you have just gone crazy, and we know that he had a little bit of a temper, if you've just gone crazy and murdered your girlfriend or your significant other, I can only imagine that Gabby said something. Now, I'm not blaming her, but she said something. There was a dialogue that was going on that once he killed her, his grief, in other words, he was already so enmeshed with her, her life being over was his life being over. Because think about this for a minute. If you really think about a maniacal killer, they can say, oh my gosh, I was sleeping. I woke up with the van door open. You can find all kinds of stories to come up with. But instead, he jumps in the van, leaves her for the coyotes, and goes home. So we now know that something was mentally wrong with Brian Laundrie. I mean, really, there's no other way to really kind of say that, is that even to see him after he murdered her, which we saw a couple of the shots, when he was at the camping and stuff like that, and he's like smiling with his nephews. And I'm thinking to myself, and it just came up yesterday when I decided to do this live, all of a sudden it hit me that he was so enmeshed with her, with Gabby, because Gabby was a rising star. I'm not saying that he didn't have a following, but there's something about him needing to take what she had. And what's interesting, and you guys know this, it's not like Brian didn't have any kind of following, so to speak. All right, he did. And the thing, we all talk about Gabby because obviously she was pretty, she was vivacious, she was lovely, and she was the one killed. And at the same time, what is it? Because this young man did have a following. He had some good, I mean, you guys probably know he had a pretty good following on social media. So when we look at that, what was it that would create the level of rage that he would want to destroy her? More importantly, there was an energy that I felt from him of like, he wants to just control her. And I think I talked about this, and it's more than control. It's like that disappearing twin thing I talked about on another live, where it's absorbed into them. And so Brian Laundrie really, I think on some level, he really, and I know you guys are going to like go, I had talked about this even in the past about how women, don't take this wrong, guys, because I think there's some really great guys on here. I think when a woman marries energetically beneath her, if she feels she needs to lift that man up, he knows it and he resents her for it. And every guy knows this. It's like if they feel like that they're, it's kind of like, and I go back to Chris Watts too, because it's kind of like when a woman marries beneath her, it's kind of, we see what happens. In this case, it was really one of those, I'm sorry, it's so hot. So I'm like, and I just did my hair, so it's still like warm. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like going to pass out. I won't, I promise. But when we see what's going on here, we see that Gabby was working 20 times harder. She got the van. It was in her name. She lived with his family. There was so much she was doing to ingratiate herself and be in his world. Why? Because, and I'm not saying obviously they were engaged and there was some kind of thing going on, right? But at the same time, it's not like a woman doesn't move in with a guy. That's okay. But I'm talking about she over-delivered. I didn't feel between her and Brian there was any kind of equality. I have to say, I really feel she was doing a lot more, because what happens is she was thinking she was less than him because of his abuse and because of his inability to let her live. Just going to check out and say, yes. Facine B just said, like he felt the urge to absorb her energy, the sun and the black hole. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And then the Zeke. Oh, hey, Zeke. Cute dog. Does that mean it was just a bad match, or can they fall or grow into sync? Yes, they can fall into sync. It is a bad match. And what can happen if things are going to work out? Listen, I know a lot of people that marry somebody and you're like, but ultimately it can become a very good match, because it can be, you have a type A and a type B, and they're kind of like perfect, and I've seen this a lot where, I have friends that are successful women and they have husbands or, partners that are kind of like, they just kind of are. He's a photographer, not anything wrong with that, but he's a photographer, or he just, works a regular job, and she's extreme, she runs a company. So I've seen, and some are, run the household. I've seen a lot of that role reversal, right? And I think we're seeing more and more of it. I think we're seeing more acceptance of live as you want to live. It goes back to a lot of the conversation around, that's been really in the uprising in the last couple months, about marry who you want, like be you, and all of those kinds of things I think are so important about accepting how we live and accepting each other. And I think that's a very important message to get. So I'm glad you brought that up, Zeke, because sure, there's two things we have to look at in any relationship. You're going to marry a parent. I don't care what anybody says. You're going to marry your mother. You're going to marry your father. And when you do, you have to be able to work through the issues in you that you're seeing in that partner that you know is not really a parent. That's not their, it's not your parent. It's their behavior. And you can sometimes go, wow, you know, maybe my mom did that for a good reason, or my dad did do that. And it bothered me at the time, but I think it's a really sweet thing that my partner's doing. So sometimes, you know, you can, when you can transcend that relationship and be open to conversation. Oh, this is such a great segue. Woo, Zeke gave me the segue. The segue is into, let's look at Amber, her inability to, I love when somebody first said this. Oh, and is that a word? Conversate, right? I was like, you know, like my mother was like this diction police. You know, if you had bad diction or you said the wrong word, she'd go, you know, it was like, oh my gosh. So I think what I'm trying to say is that we look at Amber, and I've been listening to some of the conversations between she and Johnny Depp. And one of the things that really becomes clear is that, you know, Johnny really has some skills in terms of communication, and you can hear it in terms of he's saying, we need to work on this, or we need to talk, or I love you, or I want to help you, or I want to be there. And she is sitting there going, you're doing this, and you're this, and you're this. And that's what we always call dirty fighting. You know, it's like I recently kind of distanced myself from a friend a little bit because, you know, it was one of those things of like, I do a lot for this person, you know, and I really have. And out of nowhere, she got into upset with me and she said, you know, it's just, I'm doing so much for you. And I was like, really? And she was like, you know, I don't throw those kinds of things at people, because here's what happens. The moment you throw that at someone, you do more for me, or the minute you do that, you've started to chip away at the trust. And pretty soon you're left with just the tooth is gone and you've got an open nerve. And what happens is you really have a hard time recovering from name calling. And that's why so much of the time you'll hear me say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. Because one of the things that happens, and that we're watching with Amber Heard, is her erosion of the relationship based on her inability to let him have his success and be a drunk if he needs to, get sober if he wants to. Listen, no one pressed her to marry an alcoholic. And by the way, alcoholism is only one thing that can happen in a family. You know, I have friends that, one good friend I can think of, and I love that she said this to me. She said, you know, because her husband is a drunk, you know, he's an alcoholic. And she said, you know, my husband has given me everything I've ever wanted. And we looked at her and she said, but never when I wanted it. And that was such a mature thing to say. And we can't expect the maturity to come out of these people's mouths, because the truth is they never dealt with it. And obviously, you know, when you look at Johnny Depp, he's obviously done some personal work. He's well read, you know, but I think that once you have that dis-ease, once you have the disease of alcoholism, you know, and he knows it. It's not like, oh gosh, I can't believe he doesn't know. He knows what's going on. He's a pretty smart guy. And I think we have to look at, when we look at Amber, she has a complete inability to articulate anything to anybody about the truth, right? Because if you listen to her, everything is about what happened to her. And it's kind of like this sanitized version. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I got between him and my sister because he was going to push my sister down the stairs. It's like, you know, and meanwhile, Johnny's like, well, I was standing all the way over there. And there's a belief to him because he is well-spoken and he is articulate. Now, look, when he's drunk and high and all that crap, he's writing stuff on the walls in his own blood. I mean, you know, that's a little out there. But, you know, I really have to say that he met his mother and he married his mother, you know. Yeah. Me. Claire, good to see you, baby doll. Trintron, woo! Good to see you. I just want to say hi to a couple of people. Oh, you're so nice to me. Grandma Moses, I couldn't listen to her. It's very hard to listen to Amber, but I want to remind you of something. Her biggest thing is that, And I want to say this, she's a human being too. And if we can really just have, like, just breathe and have a little compassion for her inability to really function. And not only that, you guys, for the suffering I had to do when I watched a few minutes of Aquaman, hey, she sucks. She's terrible. She's one of the worst actresses I've ever seen. She was so lucky that Johnny Depp took her under his wing and, helped her with her part in the Rum Diaries. And, I want to say that getting back to, I know I'm kind of like maybe floating a little bit, but I want to come back to this. The real crime here is that this woman, let's look at this for a minute. She had everything. Think about it. Johnny Depp is on record telling her, I love you. It's kind of like that moment. And it's like, she can't feel it, you guys. She doesn't feel it. She doesn't feel love. And I don't know about you, but I think there are a lot of us who grew up with alcoholism that feeling love or feeling that someone loved you was one of the most impossible things ever to feel. And I think that's so normal if you're in that spot. Now, I'm not saying what she did was right. She actually has had some despicable, I think despicable is a great word. Really, her behavior is despicable. But if we look at her and the pathos to her, there is a real sadness to Amber Heard, because you look at that, she is exquisitely beautiful, and then you realize she has no idea that's going to fade. And I think that Coco Chanel said it, that who you are shows up on your face at 40, and it will come to her. The sad thing is that what she's done is she basically kicked and scratched and beat and abused a man who really loved her. And when we look at that moment in the kitchen when she's filming him, right, attacking the cabinets, I'm pretty sure that was just around the time his mother died. What a despicable woman. I'm sorry, but like, to just to claim all of these bruises and then the next day to go on, I think it's Jimmy Corden. Who was it? I forget whose show it was. Corden? Can't think of his name right now. But no bruises, I am trying to say that this woman is so pitiful that I can only say that because Johnny Depp is such an incredible force of nature. And I know I did that video, I guess the other day, and I put it up. And really the crux of it, and I talked a lot about the circumstances around this, but at the end of the day, Johnny Depp, in order to heal from his part in this, must recognize his own value. Because you see, he wouldn't have gone after a woman like this if he felt that he had value. And I'm not talking about a big ego. I'm not talking about that. We can talk about Alec Baldwin later. I'm talking about really the thing of everybody loves Johnny Depp. Well, not everybody. I'm sure there's people that don't, but he's very likable. And one of the things he must do is watch his own work. I remember Jeff Lewis when I was on the show Flipping Out for a while. Jeff said to me, your biggest problem is you have no idea about your own, your own value and what you push too much. And he was right. He was right about me. And I thought, oh yeah, he's right. And it really shifted that information really shifted how I was in the world, because that feedback, because he is trying to fill everything up that's the emptiness inside with drugs, with alcohol, with another film, because he's racing to create. Now, when we look at that, and I want to get back to Laundrie and Amber in a moment, but when we look at the dynamic of how Johnny Depp has that inability to see who he is, you don't know what value you have if you don't create your own criteria for it. You can't depend upon the public to give you value, because at the end of the day, someone may love you one week and the next week you're shite and they're canceling you. So what you have to do is recognize what your work is. You have to know it. You have to know the value. And when, I think Johnny has to see his work in order to understand that, to understand what other people are seeing in him so that he won't need it from out there. And I think that's the biggest issue when we look at a, quote, victim, right? And I don't like to use that word, but, you know, because the thing is that I think both parties are trying to heal something. I think Johnny, of everyone, actually, Johnny has the best chance. And had Gabby lived, I think she had a very good chance of discovering her own value because she had people that valued her. So she had good role models. You know, Depp didn't have good role models, but he's become one. And I think that's an important thing. I'm just going to take a pause and see what's going on chat. Hey, good to see you guys. Halo effect. Yeah. Oh, James. Thank you, Harley. Let's see. She's a disgrace. I know, V. You know, I'm really trying hard. Southern Florida fighters. Ooh, love Southern Florida. It's cool down there. I mean, it's hot, but it's nice. Amber had it good, from rags to riches, beautiful husband. And Crow just said, Crow 001, you said there must be something wrong with her for real. I think there is. And I think that's where we have to say, yeah, Alicia just said it in a different way, but I think it is that emptiness inside. Let's see. Kung Fu. I love Kung Fu Panda. Let's see what you got to say. Looks fade and money comes and goes, but character is forever. You know, I'll tell you what, that's the hardest thing about, hi, Tanya, Alabama. I don't know. That's a state I want to visit. I'm not sure what's going on with me there, but anyway, back to Depp. I think one of the things we really have to look at is the idea of, you know, Johnny doesn't want to see those films because somebody had mentioned this on the feed in comments, and I thought this was really good. He said, well, Johnny, you know, of course he said it a little mean to me, but basically it was the content was good. And what he said was that Johnny doesn't want to see his films because it reminds him of his past indiscretions, you know, his drinking and drugging. And, you know, I'm sorry, guys, but you got to face who you are. If he continues to run and just try to shove off who he is, there's just going to be another Amber, because you see, Amber has got to be a bottom for him. You know, everybody hits a bottom. I had my abusive relationship was a bottom for me. It was like, no, never again. You know, I used to say he scared the mean out of me, you know, and I think that's kind of what happens is that, you know, I can look at Johnny and see that he's depleted, you know, even so much as her getting involved in his rehab. Girl, go home. You know, I'm sorry, but like, she knew he had a drinking problem, if you will. It bothered her, and she married him. Let me think about that. Really? You know, it's kind of like if you're afraid that your husband is going to die in a fire, don't marry a fireman. You know what I'm saying? Like, if this is something you cannot live with, because I think to try and mold somebody into what you need them to be, that's where you get into trouble. Now, here's the thing that I think happens at the beginning of these kinds of relationships. And when I say these kinds, let's look at Laundrie and let's look at Amber as well. I think that even when she was talking about how Johnny was pursuing her, she was not only flippant, she was really demeaning. She was very much, well, I didn't know why he was calling me. I mean, I wasn't into him, or, you know, she just kind of like talked about it like she was a teenager, you know, and that's not a nice way to speak about the man you marry and that you profess on the stand, I loved him. I don't think she loved him. I don't think she knows what love is. And I have to tell you, I mean, even when we look at the baby that she just had through a surrogate, you know, the weeks before, Elon Musk was trying to get her to destroy the fertilized eggs that they created together. I don't know what he was thinking when he did that, except I think he's got like a little bit of everything in his baby, you know, I want to say collection, you know, because he's got like a woman who's like this great singer, and he's got, you know, so he's had like babies with different women who have different good qualities. And I guess he was looking for maybe beauty. I don't know. But he tried to get a court order to stop her from that. Now, let's look at the attraction there. Obviously, Johnny was taken in with her. Johnny said that when he kissed her on the set, he was feeling things he shouldn't have felt. And meaning because he was in another relationship. Well, you know, that happens on a set. You know, things happen. It's the question of, are you going to stick to what, you know, what you had, or are you going to like move away from it and go to something else? And I think that, again, I want to be clear. I'm not here to be judge and jury on this. You know, that's their people's own personal, you know, situation. But I think it's a lot easier, so much easier to, you know, glorify beauty. And we do that a lot in our country. In fact, it was very interesting today because I don't know what state it was. I think it was Texas that just passed a law that said with Instagram, you can't, how do you say, change your look. Because some of these women were like, you know, making themselves look completely different. And that idea, like beautifying themselves to what we consider standard beauty. And, you know, I'm sorry, but I've seen some really beautiful women physically who are the ugliest people I've ever known. And they're mean. And, you know, Amber reminded me of the girls in Mean Girls, you know, the girls you're scared of in school, because there is one, and I want to find that snippet for later, but there's a snippet where she's being interviewed and about something about going to Toronto. I forget which film, but she was like, no, I wasn't in Toronto. Like, she was just like so mean. You could see this vile creature underneath the exterior. And in that moment, it was like it flashed before me. My God, like, here's this man that like basically married this woman that he didn't know what he married. I think he married someone who was unpredictable as his mother, and that really was going to cause him to drink and drug more. Because you see, I think that she has to be his bottom. And we talk about a bottom, we talk about like the last rung. You know, you're basically like on the floor, disgraced. And, you know, the thing is that, you know, my feeling always has been, you can say anything about me, but if you start to go after my business, parties, it's on. And I think that's what you know, what Johnny did, is that, you know, even listening to some of those tapes, you guys, I know you heard them when he says, listen, there's this one that where he was so sweet to her. And he says, listen, you and I don't want this out in public. Let's just sign off, agree. We go our separate ways. We say ta-ta, we go bye-bye, and we each have our own life. And she just couldn't stop. She kept saying it was his fault. And, you know, in his defense, Johnny was just like really trying to have that communication. And one of the things that I do when I talk, like, especially with the chakra wisdom cards, I do a lot on that base of how we're communicating and what we're saying to other people. And I think it's, of course, my Be Kind t-shirt to have that on. You know, I feel like it's very important to remember that people are suffering. You know, whatever's going on with them, they're not doing great. And I think that we've seen this with the bullying thing in the last however many years. And I think more recently, people really ignoring that whole idea of being nasty to people. Look, you know, I think Amber will I think she's going to have to, it's going to be between her and God. And I feel like she needs help that I don't know that she'll ever get. And I'm going to be really upfront when I say that, because when I look at somebody, I think it was Minnie Donkey said this, you know, when I look at somebody like her, it doesn't matter what I want to say, what characterization you put on it. When you put something like, you know, bipolar, they're suffering. These people are suffering. This isn't like that person's a narcissist. It's like that person has got to be unhappy. And, you know, people go, well, narcissists don't feel that way. Well, okay. But can you imagine? It's like there's that line at the end of Sleepy Hollow where Ichabod Crane says, what if I lived my whole life wrong? And I think there's that alone time when I don't care what ism you have, where it is, you recognize what you're doing. Now, with serial killers, they just got to kill again because that's the pattern, right? That's something that will just fill them up. It's kind of like when we look at Amber, she could not let it go because what was she trying to get from Johnny Depp? See, if we really look at why she was abusing him, it was because she needed her father to love her. She needed her daddy to be loving to her. And you know what the issue is, you guys? Johnny Depp was more loving to her than her own father. And I have to say, it didn't show up in the exact way she needed it, because you know what? You really can't get what you never had. Like, you just didn't have it. You can recognize that you didn't have it and say today, okay, you know what? I didn't get that. And there is upset about not getting it. And I know that that person can't give it to me, but I have to be sad about that, you know? And I think it's fine to be sad about what you didn't get. Oh my God. I know. Kung Fu, I know. There's a piece of, there's a tape looking for his finger. I can't even, you know, I can't even, you know, get into, because she kind of does make me sick. I'm sorry. Let's see. Oh yeah, Scott just said it. Right on, Scott. Yeah, she gives him the gift of a knife. Now, I'm sorry, but like, why do you give a man that's beating me, hitting me, tearing things up? Why do you give him a knife? See, this, first of all, think about this, you guys. I mean, I've had someone who tried to abuse me and it didn't work out for them. But the point I'm making is that I'd never give him a knife. Are you kidding me? I would not put this person within 15 feet of me. When he would come to my door at night, please let me in. That I just said, go away, turned up the volume. We just should talk. I want to talk. Now you want to talk, you know? No, you had your chance to talk, but there was no conversation. It was all about how I was to blame for everything. And here's the thing. If you sincerely think somewhere in there you are to blame for something about that person, you will stay. And the other thing is that there also are, you know, there's other extenuating circumstances. I don't want to, you know, say, you know, that women stay because of that. No, they stay because they're kids, or there's certain things that they stay for, and I can't judge that. But what I can tell you is that, you know, I know that for me, when it was like, you can only leave so many times, you can only throw things so many times. And you know what? Johnny stopped loving her. And in a way, I think he got that he spent his life loving a mother that couldn't love him back. She's not a bad person. You know, Amber's not a bad person. She's a sick person. And her sickness is making her very vicious. You know, this is the thing. Alcoholics are sick. But here's the catch. You know, I know you guys have heard me say this, but I loved it. I heard it once in an AA meeting, and it's an old cliche, but basically it goes, you know, before AA, I was a drunken horse thief. Now I'm a sober horse thief. You know, and that's the point. Is like it doesn't change who you were before. It makes you face who you are. It makes you recognize. And I think that's what really happened to me in the last 2 years of, I think some of you know, when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I literally couldn't handle it. And I didn't know how to be. It was like this, I forgot who I was for a while. And there is that kind of time. So if we look at, and I'm going to just frame this a little bit, and then I want to get your thoughts on some of these things. If we frame this as Brian Laundrie killed Gabby and ran away, why would he kill her? Just think about this. We know, you know, there's a myriad of reasons, right? We know money, jealousy, some kind of rage, because maybe she was leaving him. The point I'm making is that he didn't just wake up and go, I'm going to kill her today. You know, now Chris Watts did that. But you see, the thing is that Watts was about lust. This is about, and I'm seeing this more and more, people trying to take an identity because they don't have their own. And that in a nutshell is the similarity I see between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. And if any of you watched even like 5 minutes of Aquaman, she's an embarrassment. She is wooden stiff. And the problem is, and she even makes Jason Momoa look bad in that. You know, he's a pretty decent actor, but he's one of those like a throwaway line kind of guys. You know, like, well, you know, why didn't you just pee on it? You know, and she's like, I mean, you know, her reaction, like, I mean, I just would have looked at him, you know, like, but she overacts in everything she does. And I think that the best thing that happened to her career was Johnny Depp. And for her acting like, oh, you're in my way, there is something very maniacal with her. Yeah, it's Sonia just said, sorry about her daughter. I think the thing is that the one thing we have to remember about all of this in this conversation is that we choose. And if you look, I believe in God, right? So, you know, God is or God isn't. And I really believe that we do choose the experience we want. That doesn't mean that we go, I'm going to die in the Holocaust. That's not what people choose. But what happens is they choose a greater good. They choose, it's like I always joke and say, if you pray for patience, you're going to stand in long lines because you're going to have an opportunity to get it. But I think when we look at someone and we go, okay, you know, this person has created this horrifying situation for herself. Why would you do that unless you hate yourself that much? Yes. F-Scene said, same thought. Laundrie needs to take what he didn't have. Yeah, exactly, Brent. Wouldn't AS. Mm-hmm. Let's see. She was worded as hell. Oh, you mean wordy, yeah. I do feel bad for Amber's baby. God only knows what type of childhood she's going to have. Ending up, well, the thing that I can say is a lot of times, you know, this is the situation where she raises somebody, and you know, you can do just as much harm. There is a thing about gosh, my first book that I ever read on new agey stuff or self-help was Women Who Love Too Much. And it was very funny. She and I had the same agent. Isn't that funny? Like years ago. But I can't think of her name right now. Susan. Anyway, she became an astrologer. So go figure out how that came to be. But Women Who Love Too Much was really about the idea that when a woman loves too much, she will give up herself and crush everything. Well, I think what Amber was fighting was she was fighting giving up herself. But I'm sorry, you know, when we're in any kind of relationship, there is a time when you kind of merge, you know, energetically. You're kind of like, you're with that person. There's a way in which we either become codependent or interdependent. And interdependence is an enjoyment of one another as we take on some of the wonderful qualities of our partner. And that's really the difference, is that I think that if we look at Johnny Depp, he wasn't capable of making that decision. He was drinking and using, and you can't have an ability to make a decision to find somebody that is going to be interdependent with you. Even seeing them on the red carpet, you know, obviously early on, she's on his arm. But I got to tell you, there's some times when I saw him looking at her and I thought, ooh, you know, because he was really unhappy with his choice, but he was sticking with it. And I think that's something that we see, is that men do stay in abusive situations. Let's talk about Brian Laundrie just for a moment. What happens when they lose their identity? Now, you see, his identity was being created by Gabby. I don't know about you. My mother used to say, oh, he looks like a bump on a log. You know, he just looked like a tag along, didn't he? Brian Laundrie was just like, he just had this goofy look on his face all the time. He didn't even look like he was, you know, with it. But, you know, maybe he's a nice guy. I don't know. I'm not, you know. But there's an appearance of him that he was not fully formed. And I need to say that his death is something that will weigh on his own parents. I'm not saying he didn't murder Gabby. I'm not trying to get into that. What I am talking about is that having a shell, if you don't have yourself, you will ultimately try to kill or deaden whatever you feel is taking away from you for whatever reason. And we can look at Laundrie's mom, and we can look at Johnny's mom. Then we can look at Amber and her father. But wait a minute. There is a fly in that ointment, isn't it? What is it? It's the fact that Gabby had two dads, and they were both very good. They were really great guys. I have to say, the Petito family and the other, I don't know the other family's name, but both the mother and father were really lovely people. My sense is that Gabby really never really got over losing her dad in that sense. He went and had another family, and she was important to them. I'm not minimizing that. But I think, I just did a piece, and I was writing about it for an email I'm going to send out. And it really is about that thing of like, sometimes things that happen to us when we're like 6, you know what I mean? Or 7, and it would seem so innocuous. And it's nobody's fault. Things happen where we make meaning of something. And the story I was talking about is, if you're 6 years old and you're with your parents in the car and you pass your favorite chocolate shop, and you go, oh, I want to stop. And the parents are like, no, I want to stop, a little tantrum, 6 years old. And they go, it's closed. And you look, and the lights are on, and there are people in there. It's not closed. Even at 6, it's not closed. And they're going, it's closed. I need the chocolate, whatever. Then 30 years later, or 5 years later, for the rest of your life, you're reminded of the story how cute, when you were 6, how you begged and said you needed chocolate, and you were so silly and so ridiculous. So what does that do, right? Well, even though it seems like such an innocuous thing, and I just worked with a client who we worked through this, but it was such a, because it was one of those things where it was like seemingly like, that doesn't matter. Well, let's hold on. Let's pull that back in for a second. I'm going to say thank you in one moment. I think one of the things that we have to look at here is that at 6 years old, she made a decision that she didn't have to ask anybody for anything because they were just going to make fun of her and they weren't going to give it to her anyway. What do you think happened? She went through her life feeling like she didn't want to really ask anybody for anything. Oh, Ricky boy, thank you so much. And if we can send some light, you guys, I really want to send some prayers out to Ricky boy Drone. He has, his mother is ill, and just for the two of them just healing and completion and love, and just in this time, I'm just getting truth bumps. I just want to say, just sending you lots of prayers and really wonderful light. And I'm asking that God send you some angels who will guide you, and because it is a hard time, and I want to just acknowledge that. Thank you for the super sticker. Shay, have you been on here before? Because you're cracking me up. Shay Carson just said, Brian, this is the line of the night. This is it. I can just go home now. She just said, Brian Laundrie looks like the biggest goofball. Gabby had come into her prime as teenager and more woman. I think you're right. I think we can just kind of like, close it there. But I think that's very true. I think that, we have to remember, and if we go back, thanks for that, Shay, for that comment. It was great. I think if we go back, and by the way, it's not a parent's fault or whatever, but if I look at Gabby, I can energetically see where her parents were so adjusted and so healthy, and they really tried to help Gabby. And I think, on her own part, I think Gabby was trying to keep the relationship together because she wanted her dad to be consistent. And that's not to say he wasn't, but I'm saying, like, at 6, it's kind of like, or whatever age, she was very young. It's like, you don't have your dad. Well, why not? Like, why did he leave? And it doesn't matter how much you tell somebody it's not your fault, or, oh, we're just making fun of you for the candy store. It stays with you, and the thing that that we make meaning of becomes our biggest block. And as I was mentioning, I most of my referrals are from therapists, and I had a woman. They send me their people because I energetically can find the issue, and then I send them back to the therapist because I'm not a therapist. But one of the things that I have found consistently is that it's usually related to what can seem like the most unimportant moment. It can be like, well, I mean, it's silly. What's silly? Well, I was 6 and I really wanted to stop for chocolate, and I threw a big tantrum and I pretended I was dying in the back seat, and my parents never let me forget. Well, that's kind of funny, right? We can laugh. You see a 6-year-old, I'm dying, I need it, like it is funny. However, what isn't funny is, and she had abusive parents anyway, so just to kind of quote that a little bit, just to kind of put it in perspective. That was the memory she had, though. And of all the memories of every moment of mother, father, drinking, whatever, abuse, it was that moment that they wouldn't stop and they lied and told her it was closed. And I said, well, what does that energetically tell me? If I said to you, no, it's closed, you can look at it and see I'm lying. So if they're lying to me, and I know that's true, but then they get to humiliate me for the rest of my life saying, you look so silly. After you lied to me, you're the wrong one, but I'm the one who gets humiliated. So what do you think begins to happen to that person? See, it is those little moments that we make meaning of. Now, put that on top of, somebody said earlier, bipolar, put that on top of whatever issues you want to throw on top of it, and suddenly it becomes bigger. So when we look at, and I look at this as a blank slate of multi-generational healing, and I might do a night of that, where I pull a card or two for people. Because the truth is that I think that Brian Laundrie, he found a woman who would not give up on him. But you have to remember that this guy, I mean, I looked at him, he was a bit of a goofball, right? But he didn't have any self-esteem. There was nothing going on in there. And Gabby was trying to endow him with self-esteem. That's what happens. When you marry beneath you, or you get into a relationship, when I say beneath you, I'm talking about somebody you have to drag along, who doesn't pull their own weight in life. That's what codependent is, because that person needs you, so therefore you're valuable. Right? So the people that are often the ones who are, if you will, victimized, like in that situation, it really is something where, we can look at Gabby and go, holy crap, yeah, the police arrested her for being the aggressor because he had the bruise. And, here's Amber Heard walking around, he hit me, and it's like, we're supposed to just believe her. That's the crap that I think really went out the window. I believe her. No, I don't necessarily believe her. So you can't tell me, don't get me wrong, Me Too. Yeah, a lot of women found out they were abused. Good. We all found out we were in the same, nobody was really alone with it. It happens. It happened, right? But, when it goes too far, is like saying, well, it's always the guy. No, wait. Reel that one back in. All right. That ain't... That isn't so true, is it? Because now we're looking at this woman really abusing her victim status. And here's the thing that begins to happen. Are you guys noticing this? It's kind of like I don't know what movie it was that I was watching, but this person's on this, it's almost like in a bird cage, right? And there's rope, and every time they say something or do something, it goes lower, right? And they're about to drown themselves. And this is what Amber's doing. She would rather drown than have said to Johnny, you know what? Think about this if she had this ability. You know what, Johnny? I'm really looking at you like you owe me something, and I'm treating you like my dad, and I just don't have the capacity to be in a relationship with you. What would happen? A conversation would happen. See, we don't know how to have these conversations. We don't know how to say to somebody, hey, you know what? I did mess up and I'm really sorry. You matter to me. And I'm sorry I messed that up. You know, I read an article, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it was so wonderful. It was written by a man who said, I now understand why I ruined my marriage. And, you know, it was something, and forgive me for putting it this way, but it's funny. It's always over dishes, isn't it? Do you ever notice that? It's always about the dishes in the sink. But he said that what I appreciated about his honesty is he didn't know this at the time, by the way. He said he didn't know it until she left him. Because little things matter. And little things that it's not about taking off somebody's boot and rubbing their feet and giving them a glass of wine to prove that you're their wife. That's not what it's about. It's about those things where the person says, you know, I really don't like when you just wash one cup and you put it on the counter. Can you just put them all in the dishwasher, or can you put that away? It bothers me. This was in this guy's article, and he said he just kind of thought, that's ridiculous. It's one cup. Why is it bothering you? That's really stupid. Basically, you know, kind of like, come on. He realized that the cup ruined his marriage. And you see, this is because inconsiderate moments create the inability to feel safe with someone. The more you're inconsiderate, the more you just don't take into account what is going on with that other person. And he talked about, and I thought this was so wonderful and so telling, because what he said was, you know, how hard would it have been for me to say, okay, and take that cup, wash it, and put it away? It bothered my wife. I could have changed that, but I didn't know that it really was important to her. Truth bumps. See, I think that Amber is going to find herself very much alone, and I think she's going to find herself at the losing end of this no matter what happens. And I think all of us, the best thing we can do for Amber Heard is to pray that she just, like, and when I say pray, just I send her the ability to find out what she's done. And sadly, I see too many of the clients I see where, you know, a woman is in her 60s, I had a client, and I'm going to kind of change some of the story, but basically, you know, she came to me and she was like, she really wanted a relationship with her daughter. Well, okay, you know, I said, well, then call her. Oh, I can't call her. She won't take my call. I said, well, people don't just wake up on Tuesday and go, I'm not going to take your call. What happened? Oh, she's very difficult. I said, okay, why is she difficult? You know, you have to keep asking, like, what, you know, I'm not a therapist, so I'm just asking you questions. And energetically, I start to get deeper and deeper. And what it came down to was she just said, well, I said, yes. She said, I don't like the way she's raising my grandchildren. Listen to the words. My grandchildren. I don't like the way she's raising my grandchildren. And I said, there's your problem. What do you mean? I said, stop. You're in her life. This is the problem. Now go see your therapist. You know, and she did take some more work with me, but meaning the courses and stuff, because I'm, like I said, not a therapist. Johnny loved her until he couldn't love her. TKO bro, right on. Johnny loved her. Oh, wait. Until he couldn't love her anymore. He really did try to help the relationship, but she drove him deeper into substance abuse because that was his escape from her. You know, I want to say this because I think TKO, I think you got it going on here. You're right on. And I want to say something else is that he really, that was his coping mechanism. You see, one of the things I was talking about is that he needs a new coping mechanism. He needs to find that, or he's going to just get into another situation where he won't be able to have that that he's looking for. So peace really is what I thought. So thank you for that. That was really right on. Let's see. Let's say hi to a few people here. I don't think, okay. Shay said, I don't think she was severely abused, but I'd be hard pressed to think if Depp did blow, and it blah, 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 and alcohol for days and not become violent as she's acting. But it's been 6 years for days not become violent. Yeah, I think that I don't think she was abused. I do think that she was abused as a child. And I think that it's almost like, that thing we learn as kids, Pavlov's dogs, right? If you ring the bell and you feed the dog, and you ring the bell and you feed the dog, and you ring the bell and you feed the dog, and you ring the bell and feed the dog, what's going to happen when you just ring the bell? The dog is going to salivate. And this is what we prove these learned behaviors. So at 6 years old, when your parents pass by it was called Helen Elliott chocolates. Isn't that funny? She knew. I knew Helen Elliott's. Anyway, she talked about that, right? That in that moment, it's like that she knew her parents were lying. They didn't say, no, we don't want to stop. We just can't tonight, and it's final. And she could throw whatever tantrum she was going to throw. But when they lied to her, that's what she made meaning of. And so it was really something where she was out. What I'm going to give you a guess as to what profession I guessed she was in. What profession do you think she was in? Come on. I want to see if anybody, thanks, Doc TK. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Jay Steven. That's very nice of you. Hope you're doing well too. Yeah, Brent, isn't it great? She canceled herself. I think this is what we should just start seeing. I'd like to see some of these idiots just cancel themselves. Okay. Oh, Shay. Let's see. She betrayed Pepita. Now she went, Julie, bing, bing, bing. She is a detective. Because you know what she's very good at? You see, your wounding becomes your gift. So she's very good at hearing the lies. She's actually quite celebrated in her business. How funny is that? Let's see, school teacher. That would have been a good one too. Was she a lawyer? She could have been. Okay. But you see, when you're lied to and that becomes a thing, that's an undercurrent, right? So what is Amber's undercurrent? It's that she was never enough. Her father was never, she didn't matter enough. So what do you think she's going to seek out? She wants to have the world love her, the world. She wants to matter to the world. And let me tell you something. She wrote that article under false pretenses because she wants us as women to go, oh, Amber, thank you for standing up, even to that mean Johnny Depp. It didn't have to be Johnny Depp. His name could have been Paul Smith. You know what I'm saying? But it was Johnny Depp that she went after. So what I'm saying to all of you, and I think this is the key, is that she was behaving undercurrent of something she needed to create because she was trying to heal it. Most of the time when we do something bad, we're trying to fill something or heal it. I can't speak for serial killers. GMA, yeah, betrayal. And Halo Effect said AH wasn't exactly a stellar sobriety coach. I think that's okay. Second line of the night. Now you get it. Let me see. She served him wine, whiskey daily early on in the relationship, encouraged him to take Xanax with alcohol, and had her own substance abuse. I think she was a real wino. I agree. And that's another thing. At 26, and even going into your 30s, you don't think it's gonna hurt you. Oh, does it hurt you? Just wait and see. It shows up. Let's see. Amber hated when Johnny wouldn't stay and fight. See, I think we have to define the fight for me shit. Oop, I can't believe I said that. The stuff around that. Because when we look at the fight for me, well, there's a healthy fight for me, right? Where I take a stand and I say, look, and I remember saying this to an old boyfriend once. I said, listen, I want to run out the door. And we may not end up together. We may not be forever. Well, we weren't. But I am committed to us working through whatever this is. And when we get to the other side of it, if we decide that we're not right together, that'll be fine. But I don't want to just give up and storm away in some kind of anger thing. I want to walk away with my dignity. I used to walk in a room and want to change the world. Now I just like to leave the room with dignity. And I think that is a lesson that Amber Heard has not gotten. I think she really thinks that, boy, she just has it going on. And she doesn't. and if you watch her in Aquaman at all, it's like this horrible. And by the way, she has no chemistry with a man who everybody thinks is the sexiest man in the world. I don't, but then again, I have different taste. Let me see what we got going on here. Julie, she did as many drugs, but tries to just point to his. Well, Julie just said it. Yeah. See, even if we look, and this is the problem, this is where I get really mad about Brian Laundrie, because I really wanted to hear Laundrie. Dirty laundry. I really wanted to hear him blame her more, because there was some stuff that we saw. Do you remember where we saw some stuff where it's like he was blaming her? He was saying, well, she did this, and then there was this agreement between them where she said, well, I did hit him. You hit him? Was that your intention? That probably was one of the best lines the cop said, is that, but did you intend to? And I really appreciated that, because even though he was the one with the scratches, and he was the one, when you looked at it, just in law, not in, reality of what we would think, you could see that she said, I did. I hit him. And I think that, I'm talking about Gabby and Brian now. And I think that what happens is the person who is abused is always the person that co-signs and admits their wrongs. Think about this. They co-sign their own warrant. Basically, yeah, I did it. We did it together. And the other person goes, they did it. Because there is no soul in there. Honestly, I have to tell you, when Brian was dead, and I think my buddy Duty Ron was saying, oh, he's dead. And I was like, no, I think he's alive. Like, because he had no soul. I couldn't feel him gone. And normally I could feel if someone's gone, which there's another case I want to go back to about the boys in California, but I'll talk about that later. But, I can often feel like if somebody's dead, like I can just go, no, they're not there. I don't see them. And the thing is with Brian Laundrie, it's like I just felt he was there. Like, meaning there was no difference between him being alive and him being dead. Because the truth is, he didn't really ever, it was like this hollowness. And I feel the same thing for Amber. I feel that they both have a hollowness that they're trying to fill up with someone else's gifts. And I really think that Amber made that lovely error of thinking that she could actually take Johnny's glory. Because you see, what I think that what she didn't count on is she didn't count on Johnny Depp being so courageous. Because he did say to her, look, I don't want to do it. I'm telling you right now, if I did it, it's going to be bad for you. It'll be bad for me. And he admitted that, but he said it's going to get bad for you. Because you see, we were so much into the Me Too movement. The minute she said he hit me, we just believed it. But did you see? That was the picture that really shattered me, if I'm being honest. It was the picture of Amber Heard and Johnny, and she's smiling, and he's just got this ghoulish face. And it was on their honeymoon on the train, and he's got this big shiner. Literally, his eye was just black and blue, and he's like this, and she's like, how she like, she just kind of like poses, we used to go, hey, that guy's a poser, she's a poser. And it's I think what makes her so unappealing is that she can't fulfill the energy she professes to have. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm telling you, you look at someone, and I'm going to say this about like J-Lo, right? J-Lo, you have to give it to her, man. That girl she's a woman, but she's got the it too, in a way. She's got her own thing. Like she'll go, yeah, I can do that. And she's a badass, and she does it. She does it. And she can follow through and come up with the goods, is what I'm trying to say. Amber Heard doesn't show up with the goods. She ain't got nothing in there. Neither does Brian Laundrie, because I'm going to tell you something. That boy he had nothing at the top of that. There was nothing in the tower, if you know what I mean. Like, what did my mother used to say? The elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. The point is that what person, seriously, you guys, I mean, I don't know about you, but like, if I had just killed somebody, I wouldn't take their van and drive cross country. I would go, I would at least try to figure out some kind of story. Like I wouldn't do everything that I did to make myself look guilty. Um, let's see. Halo effect just she provoked Johnny. Oh, she certainly did. And tried to get him to physically fight so that she could use it against him later. When he refused to engage physically, she created fake injuries to run with the narrative. The problem is she doesn't have anything to show. Think about it. She's got one picture where she looks like she's been scratched up, but she looks like a girl hit her. Let me tell you something. Johnny may not be a fighter, all right, but I'm going to be honest. Any man who is like 5'10" and, got a little bit of weight on him, if he hauls off and hits you, you're going to feel it. It's going to show up. It's not going to be like a little scratch here, okay? So the amount of abuse she claimed, it's funny how she recorded everything, but she didn't have a picture of a single bruise. Isn't that funny? Oh, exactly. KRO 001 says J-Lo is confident. She's confident because she promises and she delivers. And that's something that we have to admire. She'll be like, oh, yeah, I can do that. And meanwhile, you're going, oh, she's going to try to do this film. Oh, my God. And she throws herself into the role. She throws herself into her singing. I have to admire her. And I really have to say, I'm getting truth bumps. I have to say good for her. Here it is, how many years later that she and Ben Affleck are back together, and I hope they're happy. I don't wish anybody ill will. I really don't. And I think that even with Amber, I don't wish her ill will. What I want to do, and I think what our conversation is about is to uplift each other. It's about recognizing that we're all human, and that the anger I feel toward her is that she tried to tear down a man who is struggling to get sober and who is trying to get his life back. That to me is despicable. She's a disgrace. I think that's the best way to put it, is that, there are times, my dad used to say, sometimes you got to kick a guy when he's down. Sometimes you do, but not the way she did. And not with the lies. And you can tell she's lying. Even when there were moments when Johnny's like looking down and you could just kind of like, you could just kind of go, oh my gosh, it's a lie. And what I don't get, and I think this is the biggest thing, and I kind of want to wrap up in a few minutes, but I want to say that I don't understand how she can just do that. She can just keep going with it. But on the other hand, I understand it, because there's a thirst she has. It's very similar to Johnny's. It's like they need something. Like Johnny can throw himself into his work and he's brilliant, right? But the drugs and alcohol tamp down feelings. And so we can look at that, and we can look at, that devouring something. But I really didn't see him trying to destroy Amber. I really don't see that. And I think energetically, you guys, if we look at the bigger picture, who was trying to destroy the other? There's a moment when Johnny said, because they were like, yeah, she got Aquaman and you didn't, you tried to prevent her. And he said, Johnny goes, how do you think she got Aquaman? Because see, Johnny was helping her. And the thing is that this is a classic, biting the hand that feeds you, because you know what? I don't like myself enough for someone to be nice to me. I have to destroy you because you hurt me. And where's that coming from? 5, 6, 7 years old. This is not an adult thinking. She is not an adult. It's like, I don't know if you guys understand this or will relate, but when I was going through a lot of my stuff, through the years, working through a lot of the growing up with alcoholism, right? That makes you wackadoodle as it is. But, there's this feeling like you're in a body of armor, right? This big armor, and you're kind of like this big in there, and you're just looking out of the eyes on the top. You're not grown inside of you. You have not grown up. And I think there was a moment when I recognized that I was no longer in that armor and that I was no longer that person. And so sometimes like you do have to go and heal. You do have to say, I can't be the person I need to be to have this conversation with you. And I was writing about it today, because I am working on stuff for my new website. God willing, it'll get done. I really need help. I need an assistant so bad, it's not even funny. But I was working on it today, and I wrote this stuff. I wrote down, and I thought this was like kind of to describe what I feel is happening with a lot of people, is that you can't teach a path that you haven't walked. You have to have gone down that path. You have to have walked that path to be able to share with other people what you know. And, you know, really, it's funny because I get not a lot, but I get sometimes people who jump on and they're like, there shall be no other gods before me, or, just they quote something, but they do it in a mean way. And the thing is that I don't think that's how God wants us to treat each other. I think God wants us to be an example of good. And I'm going to be honest, I think most people are good. This is the beauty of it. I think most of us are good. I think somewhere along the line, and this happened in the last few years, we forgot our humanity. We forgot who we were. And I think that we're starting to recognize that who we were is not who we want to be. And somebody said it on the feed, forgive me for not remembering, but I think it was very, true. This is 6 years ago with them. My God, can you imagine, Johnny is still dealing with all this, Yeah, exactly. She said, you made me do it. I can't lose my credibility. Hence, I need to keep up the lie. Right on. TKO, love you. True that. Let's see. KRO001 said, my mom's 70 and still the same mindset. Aw, Brent, you're such a sweetie pea. Thank you. Let's see. When JD was asking to not make it public, she said she didn't want to lose her credibility. You see, this is the thing. It's like, let's see. What a baby boss said, J-Lo can't seem to be 2 seconds without a man. So what? Let her have a man. The thing is that even if she's in a relationship, even if she's with that man, she is very masculine in her energy. Think about it. As feminine as she comes across, she's very masculine. And so guys aren't alone long, okay? Really, if you think about it, not all, but some just go one, the next. And it also depends on their sign. She's a Leo. Leos can't stay without somebody anyway. If you think about it, certain signs are able to. Let's see. J-Lo has talent, but she stole a bunch of artists' music. KRO001. You know what? I don't know anybody who is successful who hasn't done something kind of underhanded at one time or another. We all have. And I mean, I'm just going to say, sometimes inadvertently, we don't realize what we're doing. Sometimes it's deliberate. I think that all we can do is try to course correct and do the best we can. And I think that, let's see. Yeah, exactly, baby. Yeah. Oh, Halo, you're all over the place tonight. Let me see what Halo says. She provoked Johnny and tried to get him to physically fight so that she could use it against him later. Yes. When he refused to engage physically, she created the fake injuries to run with. I think the other thing that she started getting is that you won't stay and fight. Can you imagine? I want you to fight with me so that if you hit me, I can sue you. See, I think she wanted his money, but more importantly, she wanted his prestige. And she sees him as a fading movie star. Well, guess what? She's the fading movie star. So if we look at Brian Laundrie and we look at Amber, we see people that are very similar. We see people that are, latching on to someone. And I do believe that Brian thought he loved, I really think he thought he loved Gabby, and maybe he did in his own way. But I think that even if you look at his actions, not only murdering her, but selfish, leaving her dead body there, there is that thing that goes through your mind of why'd you leave her there? How could you leave? Even if they're dead, how could you leave someone that loved you, Anyway, so what I want to do is just please, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And I want to, because I'm going to be sending out more notices, I also want to I have some true crime stuff I want to talk about, and I am going to discuss. I know, like, I'll probably get slammed for it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I am going to. I'll probably do it this weekend. I may even do it as a live stuff about Chris Watts and his multi-generational healing stuff. That's the work I do, and I want to show you how things run in the family and how they turned out. In other words, how people use that energy. And he's got a family chart. I'm not kidding you guys when I tell you it's 17 feet long. Seriously, I had to have it printed, and it's like this massive chart. But I kind of saw what I needed, so I kind of have all those notes. But the point I'm making is that it's fascinating when you see what happens when we in life deny our own gifts and ignore what we know is right for us, and jump too soon into situations that aren't healthy for us. And, we know that. We know when we meet somebody, it's kind of like, you get those red flags. I can't tell you. I mean, I got red flags about my abuser, but I mean, you kind of dismiss it because it's not just that you want to see the best of someone. You don't want to be alone forever. You think, oh my gosh, I'm never going to meet somebody. But you know what? Getting on the wrong bus, yeah, it's moving and it's going in a direction. But if you get on the wrong bus, you'll never reach your destination. So sometimes it is better to wait it out. Sometimes it is better to step back. And I have to say, I admire Johnny Depp for his courage. And I feel sincerely for Gabby Petito's family. In also, somebody's doing a Lifetime movie about her life. I mean, I feel like, in a funny way with Gabby, I'd rather see someone create some kind of foundation, which I think they did, but for other women to be creators, and men. But I mean, I think that the legacy that she would want to leave behind is much more powerful than a Lifetime movie. Just my thoughts. Those are my 2 cents. What do you think? And I want to just see. I want to. Let's see. Claire, so good to see you. I just miss you like crazy. Let's see. Chris Watts family chart. Yeah, that's very interesting, because what I do is I look at the parents, right? But I look at their parents, and I look at the relationship of the parents, but more importantly, the grandparents, because that is often what we're seeing played out with the grandchild. And I'll just give you a little bit of a interesting thing there with the Chris Watts stuff. Fascinating. How many of his family members died in cars? Okay. I love Baby Boss. You're so much. You're so funny. Thank you, Claire. Miss Claire. Good to see you. Thank you. She stars. That's good. Great to see true crime. Yes, I know, Brent. I want to get back into my true crime stuff, and I have the first week completed of my history of the NYPD, which is really interesting. So I'm going to start at one point, and then I'm going to go back to the year they were founded and really go through the crimes of each decade from the beginning of the NYPD. So that will be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to that, intermixed with some of the lives, because I do like to talk to you guys. I like the interaction. And, my biggest issue, and really a lot of people, well, where'd you go? I really don't have anybody to help me with YouTube. And that really, it makes it very difficult, putting stuff up, and because it just takes a lot of time. That's all. It takes a lot of time. So that's what's going on. Anyway, you guys, I have just so enjoyed this evening with you, and I am going to tag you, set you all into the wild. And just remember, say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. And please, I know it's kind of silly to say this, but let's send a prayer and blessings out to, both Amber and Johnny, that this gets resolved for the highest good. And I think that it's very hard. It's really difficult, when people destroy themselves. And, you know, Johnny with alcohol, what he was doing. And I think he has a shot of getting sober. So just remember, you know, try to listen to people when they warn you. Just take take stuff with a grain of salt. So Texas Lassie, good to see you guys. And we've got to talk about Oren and his brother in California, because I am fascinated with that as well. Because I want to talk about what I see on that. All right, guys, have a great night. You will, if you're subscribed, you will be getting a notice on my next live. And Nikki, good to see you. Aiko, good to see you. Bye, guys. Yes, best intention for healing on both sides. Sending that out. Thank you, She Starts. Have a great night, everyone. Bye for now.